Let's talk about how to balance your hormones naturally. Now, the first thing I want to address is why exactly it's so complicated or so complex to balance your hormones, because it's not very straightforward when you think of how to balance your hormones naturally. Or a different way to think about it is why is it so easy for hormones to get out of balance? And that's honestly because our society isn't built for our cycling hormones. They're more akin to the 24-hour male hormones that just repeat itself every 24 hours, while our hormones have a longer stretch of time before they go and do a full cycle and reset. And because our society is meant for that 24-hour cycle where it just repeats, things like work or exercise or a lot of research on things like exercise and nutrition are based on that 24-hour cycle and not longer stretches of time for a cycle. Because in an ideal world, we would be switching up how we are eating, what exercise we're doing, even how we are working would vary depending on where we are on that longer stretch of cycle, where we are in our what phase we're on basically in our cycle. Because how we feel right after we finish our period is going to be a lot different than how we feel, let's say, right before our period or during ovulation. All of these are going to be very different, and therefore it's going to be different how we show up in the world. So that added stress of having to show up the same version of yourself day in and day out is a stressor on the body because we are not the same version of ourselves every single day. And that leads into the next biggest reason of why our hormones are so easily out of balance, and that is because life is currently very stressful for us. We're living in an age where we have all of the information, but it's all of the information all at once with things that are on the internet, things that are on TV, things that we are just binge watching. And then also there's work, there's housing, there's the economic crisis. There's honestly so much all at once, and that puts a lot of stress on us, which can then show up on our cycle. Another reason why it's so easy for our hormones to get out of balance is inadequate nutrition in our food, which is honestly a little ironic because it's so easy to get food for a lot of us, but the quality of that food has definitely gone down as our current agriculture has shifted into more production, which means that we can a lot easily get nutrient deficiencies, even though it seems that we are eating all of the right stuff, but the nutrients within those foods themselves is lackluster. Another reason why it's so easy for our hormones to get out of balance is because we are actually not taught about our health, how to be healthy. We are taught basics of anatomy and the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, but we weren't really taught how to take care of ourselves, how to reduce stress, what foods should you be looking into, what foods should you be avoiding. None of that information was really given to us. And so now it's up to us to kind of figure out what exactly should we be looking for when it comes to food, what kind of things should we be looking for products when it comes to avoiding endocrine disruptors. And I don't know about you, but that is a lot of information and a lot of research to look into these topics, and that not everyone has the time or the mental capacity to be doing that. And that leads into another big reason is that there is, of course, endocrine disruptors everywhere. From our plastics, our non-stick cookware, there is honestly a lot to dive into and go into that can then also add onto the burden of why it's so likely to get hormone imbalances. Now, something that we should be aware of is that not one of these things is going to cause a hormone imbalance, but instead it is an accumulation of all of these different factors, and even factors that I didn't even talk about will come together and add a burden on our hormones, which can over time lead to a hormonal imbalance. And that's why we need to bring some nuance into the conversation of how to balance our hormones and how to take care of our hormonal health, because there is a lot of different aspects that we need to be aware of to be able to balance our hormones, because it is more about the holistic view of our overall health. So, what I think the best way to balance our hormones naturally is to actually not think about our hormones, which sounds pretty counterproductive. I know if you want to balance your hormones, wouldn't you want to focus on how to balance your hormones? But in reality, what we want to do is focus on our full body health, because when our body is healthy, our hormones will follow. And that's because your body's priority is to keep you alive and healthy. When you are running from the metaphorical saber-toothed tiger, your body isn't going to be thinking about, oh, we should ovulate to make sure you get progesterone to get that good balance of estrogen to progesterone. No, instead, it's going to divert those resources to produce more cortisol and adrenaline because you are running for your life. That is going to be the priority. So how that would show up in modern day is if you have deadlines, if you have an exam, if you have a big project that needs to be done, and all of your energy is just focused on that project, and you are obviously stressed about it, that stress will divert any other additional resources to produce more cortisol if your body runs out, which means your hormone production will be the last thing that your body is thinking about because it feels like you are in danger. So therefore, it wouldn't be a good time for you to possibly get pregnant. So it will suppress or just overall skip ovulation altogether. Because at the end of the day, your health is more important than reproduction. I came up with 6 big areas that we should be focusing on when we do want to balance our hormones or just overall support our overall health. Now, for my work as a cycle health coach and educator, I've noticed that these are the 6 areas that I'm working with the most when I'm working with my clients and also when I'm trying to go back to the roots of my own journey and trying to once again balance my hormones because a lot of the times just from daily stress, they get a little wonky and I have to go back and revisit this. So let's go through them. So the first one is body literacy. Now, as the word implies, it is a wisdom or knowing of your own body. Now, a good way to foster that is through cycle tracking, tracking how long your periods are, what kind of symptoms come up either premenstrually, so if there's any headaches, bloating, acne, and just kind of jotting all of that down to see if there are any patterns. And something else that should be really important is how long are those cycles in general, from period to the next period? How long was that cycle? Now, that is kind of like the baseline of cycle tracking. And if you want to take it a step further, which is what I would recommend the most, is seeing if you are ovulating or not, because you want to make sure you're ovulating to get progesterone. Because at the end of the day, we can't have healthy balanced hormones if we are not ovulating to produce that progesterone. Now, I do have a workshop that goes into how to track your cycle, and I'll have that link down below where you can look into that a little bit more. But overall, it's having an awareness of what is normal for you in your body, because what is normal, when we think of normal, it isn't normal for everyone in the world. It's more of what is normal for you in your body because we are all unique. Now, the next one is rest, which is honestly so important. How much we are sleeping, how well we're sleeping is going to impact, once again, of course, our overall health, but also our hormonal health as well. Make sure we are informed. That is part of that whole everything has endocrine disruptors nowadays in them. So we want to be informed of what kind of products we're using on our skin and our like skin care and also even makeup, fragrance, all of these things can have endocrine disruptors in them, which in themselves, like that one perfume isn't going to mess with your hormones, but with all of the different things that we are coming into contact with can leave a pretty heavy burden on our hormones and also on our liver health, which our liver is what processes everything that we come into contact with. But it's also the one that is processing our hormones as well. So minimizing the amount of stress or the amount of burden that our liver has to process and also making sure that there is no xenoestrogens, which are just estrogen mimicking hormones that are out in the environment that can kind of interfere with our body's reading of our own estrogen. So minimizing all of that is probably the best rule of thumb when it comes to endocrine disruptors. And the next one is reset. So resetting is in its own category specifically for stress. So it's finding time at the end of the day, at least 1 hour a day, ideally, to find ways to relax and de-stress and just kind of let your body know that you are safe, healthy, and okay. Because when we are racing from one task to the other, speaking from experience, when we're racing from one task to the other, our body never knows what's happening. If there is some big threat, if there's like a war coming, if there's something going on. So it will just divert resources into pushing out more cortisol, more adrenaline, and not so much producing our sex hormones that we need. So find something that you enjoy and do it often, whether it is walking, writing, Pilates, doing whatever you want to do that helps you just relax and wind down at the end of each day. And the next one is movement. Now, find a movement that you enjoy and do it often. Now, what that movement is can vary depending on where you are in your cycle. Like we talked about, that version of yourself during the premenstrual phase is very different from the version of you during ovulation. And I honestly would also like to include seasons as well, because obviously when it is wintertime, which I live up north in the Northeast, I'm not going outside and running, which sometimes I enjoy, but my lungs don't enjoy that much. So keeping that in mind as well. It is okay to not do such intense workouts during the wintertime because we weren't meant to do intense workouts during the wintertime. We were meant to rest a little bit more during the wintertime than during the summer months. So what's more important is that you are enjoying the movement, that you're not getting bored of it, and also that you're doing it semi-frequently. So try to shoot for at least 2 times a week. And the last big one is nutrition, making sure that you are eating a good variety of foods, making sure that they are good quality whenever possible, because I know that they are a little bit more expensive when you are looking for better quality food. And now included in nutrition is also your digestive health, making sure that you're able to absorb the nutrients of the food that you're eating by having a good microbiome. So making sure that you're having a lot of healthy fats, a lot of protein, a lot of pre and probiotic rich foods. And that's honestly what I think is the key to good nutrition for hormones. Trying to balance all of these 6 pillars can be a little daunting at first because if a couple of them come out of alignment, then you can then further down the line lead to a hormone disruption just because our overall health is being impacted. And that's why at the corner there is kind of like a little health bar, and that's because we want to be looking at all 6 of these areas for overall health. and therefore the healthy hormones that then follow. So I hope this was a helpful blueprint into how to think about how to balance your hormones. And if you want a little bit more information, I do have a starter kit on how to balance your hormones naturally, which I'll also have that link down below. All right, and that's all I have for you today. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, and I'll be seeing you next time.